Hello and welcome to another episode on Journey to Authenticity podcast, a podcast helping you to become fully authentic on your journey to success. My name is Braden Belknap, and I'm an entrepreneur just like you, striving to build my dream life, all while staying true to myself. But what if we don't believe or even know or have certainty that what we love and our talents will carry us forward into building our dream life? That's exactly why we have Parker Kane coming in on this episode, simply because of this. He went from major depression to the point that he had one final prayer to God, where it was coming from a place of anger, frustration, contemplating taking his own life on this one last night. That night, friends called him, asking him to go on a late night McDonald's run. And that night, he beatboxed in a McDonald's cup, which was later posted that day at 12:14 p.m. estimated. And that day began his journey to transformation as that video went viral, leading to an ad being shot with the actual McDonald's corporation and over 1 billion views. After this, he's built up a podcast called Upbeat Podcast, where he mixes his talents of where he mixes beatboxing in with his podcast, building his life based upon his talents and what he loves. And he's here to help you do the same. With that in mind, welcome to the podcast, Parker Kane.
What's up, man? Hey, thanks for having me on, Braden.
Absolutely. This is podcast number 2, everybody, with Parker Kane. Our friendship goes back probably over a year now, and it feels like we've known each other for years and years.
Yeah, it's kind of a double-edged thing. It's like it feels like it was just yesterday, but at the same time, what we know about each other and kind of the progress that's happened feels years in the making.
Absolutely. One of the most talented people right here in front of us, you guys.
So, thank you, man. You too.
I got to ask, we're going to get you to beatbox for us again this time around, but what inspired you to get involved in beatboxing and podcasting to begin with?
Yeah, so beatboxing started a long time ago. It was back in the 90s. I was a little kid, and NSYNC was a big deal. And at the time, Justin Timberlake was also beatboxing quite a bit. And so I saw it as a little kid and just thought that that was a really cool thing, what he was doing. And I don't know, I guess I feel like 9 is the magic number. I feel like when we're 9 years old, or at least around there, 8, 10, 11, whatever, is when we kind of have our first passions, our first things that we're really interested in pursuing. And so I just that was my thing that I latched onto, and I still have never given it up, I guess. Just the only thing that's changed has been my reasons for it, and ultimately discovering more passions after beatboxing, like podcasting. Podcasting is something I do now that I love that maybe I would have never started if I never did beatboxing in the first place.
Well, the cool thing, I have 2 things to add there. The cool thing that I love about yours is it's called Upbeat Podcast, and you podcast on every episode of yours. So I love how you tie it together.
Yeah, it's fun. And I'm always trying to narrow in on the niche for that one, but it's a process. I've been doing Upbeat, the podcast, for 5 years, and I still feel like it's a brand new thing. I'm trying to, sculpt into what I want it to be, but I think that's part of the journey,
I agree. Pivoting, I feel like podcast change as we grow in life. Podcasting is a forever. I have no doubt Journey to Authenticity will be a podcast for my life, to say the least. And who knows, maybe my kids will take it over someday.
Hey, sweet. Might as well, right?
Exactly. Fun fact about the 9-year-old thing. I love that you say that. Fun fact about my childhood, I don't even remember what life was like when I was 9 years old.
Right. Isn't that crazy? Like how memories and trauma and whatever can just kind of make or break those memories.
So I'm sure I had something pretty cool figured out back then. I just don't remember.
Yeah, it's in hindsight. It's just funny because I've met people where because typically I meet adults, right? Not little kids. That would be maybe a little weird if I was constantly meeting little kids, but I meet their parents all the time. And 9 out of 10 times, it's a mom that comes up to me that's like, "Oh, my kid loves beatboxing. He loves trying to do this." And I'm like, "Oh, cool. How old is he? How long's he been doing it?" And they're always like, "Oh, he started when he was 9 or, oh, he's 9, And the beatboxing thing is one part of that. But I also meet people that are like, my 9 year old really loves to draw, or my 9 year old absolutely loves watching Mr. Beast and then trying to recreate content. It's just, I feel like that's an age, that 6 to 10 year old range where you start to kind of find your first things. Whether or not we remember it is a different story, I guess.
Absolutely. Amen to that. So you mentioned that your reasons have changed for beatboxing and podcasting over the years. I would love like just on a high level overview of what were your reasons in the past and what's your reason today?
I love that question. I think in the past, so when I first started beatboxing, it was just a cool thing to do. And I was a kid who, like, for whatever reason, loved that thing and was like, I want to do that. And it was more out of, trying to satisfy myself. Like, if I could be a cool beatboxer, then I've been awesome and I've done this cool thing. And so it started with me, and it started just with something random that I liked. But then over time, I realized that more than the actual beatboxing itself, I cared about how the beatboxing made other people feel. It's kind of like doing a magic trick. Like when a magician does a trick, he knows what's going to happen, right? And he's probably bored of all of his tricks. The magicians in general, they probably get bored of their own tricks, but they like the reactions that people give them, and they like making their day. And there's just like this further element of impact that comes from doing those things that you're passionate about, that you learn ultimately later in life that it's for that impact and not so much about that thing anymore. And podcasting, similar. Like, I initially wanted to do it to, have a podcast to learn more about like creating content and stuff, become kind of a social media machine. Like, I had all these ideas, right? And even a business idea behind it. But then it was like the person coming up to me at an event saying, hey, like, you are not going to believe me when I say this, but you saved my kid's life because of your podcast. And I don't know how to receive that oftentimes. And I'm probably kind of awkward. I'm just like, oh my gosh, like, really? Like, I'm so glad they're still here. I'm so glad they listen in. Sometimes it feels like nobody's listening. But you realize, like, what started as like a clever social media hack turned into like, okay, my podcast can have some real impact too.
So our first podcast was episode 56, which was a really long time ago, which is insane to think that we've come this far.
Right.
But I would love for you to shine a light on your personal story, the hardships that you experience in life and how beatboxing actually helped you get out of those hard times.
Yeah, I appreciate that. It's kind of open-ended. I'm going to touch briefly on maybe the 9 year old like thing that when I started beatboxing, but then go into later how it impacted me, kind of the viral story that I'm pretty sure I covered in the first episode we did. So when I was 9 and I started beatboxing, it was also a cool thing that I liked, but kind of an unknown fact during that time, my parents were getting a divorce, and there was a lot of like trial, tribulation, whatever you want to call it, adversity at that time in my life, like in my family. And I think as a kid, looking at the time, I didn't know, but looking back at it, I'm like, I think I grabbed on to beatboxing because it was like my safe place. Like, I could go to my room and beatbox and feel some type of way, feel happier, feel like I'm growing, feel like I'm doing something cool. And it was like a distraction and a safe place away from what was, currently going down family trauma. So it was kind of a immediately safe place for me. I was always a chubby, the chubby white dude in glasses in random towns in Idaho who would get not like bullied. Like, I never had anyone beat me up or anything, but I was teased and stuff throughout school. Sometimes probably not even knowing it because I'm such a pushover and just want to make people happy. But beatboxing is like how I learned to adapt and fit in with everybody. And again, with the magician idea or like comedians, we all kind of find these things unique to us. That is how we fit into society in our own unique ways. And so I went from being like a loner in school to being friends with everybody in school because of beatboxing. So that helped me through school. And then in college, this is the story I'm sure you were alluding to. In 2015, I had been at that time, just to kind of set the stage, I had been a couple years away from beatboxing and really taking anything seriously, because you start to get those heavy societal pressures on you. Like, what are you going to study? What are you going to go to school for? What do you want your career to be the rest of your life? And you start to feel all this pressure. And also, you're in Utah, so I'm sure there's a lot of people listening to this that might be familiar with the church and everything, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I'm still a member of that church, and I was going through a 2-year mission where I didn't really beatbox for those couple of years, and then was getting into college. So it felt kind of like I put beatboxing for the first time in my life on the back burner, and I didn't have any ambition like where I was going to go with that. I was just going to school and trying to figure out my real life, and it's so sad that that's what happens to people, but I was trying to feel like what I was going to do for my real life. And I got to a really bad state of depression. I felt like I didn't have money, I didn't have friends, I didn't have success with what I was trying to build. This is kind of where the idea for my podcast came too, is just for the entrepreneurs and creative people who feel like they just keep hitting brick wall after brick wall, and not having success. But the more I pursued going into nursing, so I was studying nursing or trying to get into nursing school in college, but my grades sucked, which is a whole other thing. That's a whole other factor to the depression, but I just was really struggling. And it went on for months until in 2015, October 2015, I kind of had my mind made up that I didn't want to be here anymore. And I didn't want to keep trying. Like, what was the point? And because I do believe in God, and I've always had a really good relationship with prayer and with God and trying to seek guidance. And so I was just like, I will do the one last prayer thing and see what the freak happens. Because like, if nothing happens after this prayer, what's the point? What's the freaking point? So I said a prayer, and I wouldn't probably encourage anyone to pray this way unless, it really is going to help you like it did me. But I was mad, and I was kind of like yelling at God, and I was just like, what the heck, man? Like, I have good intentions. I'm a good person. I want to just make a huge positive impact in this world. Why am I the one that can't freaking catch a break? And obviously there were some choice words, and just like, there's no point in going on if I can't do the things that you designed me to do, that kind of a thing. And I just was crying, laying on the floor, ready to be done with everything. And two things happened after my prayer fairly immediately. I remember rolling over onto my side and seeing my dog, Jessie, who died 2 years ago. But she was like my companion dog, my spiritual freaking companion dog. Like, she was just such a special, special thing in my life. But I was crying like, I can't leave you behind. Like, who's going to feed you in the morning? It was this whole thing where I was just looking at her, and she was laying by me on the floor. And I'm like, I'll hang in there for you, and I just kind of rolled my eyes. But also, that kept me around. And then that same night, I had friends reach out to me who wanted to go for a late night McDonald's run. And again, to kind of set the tone here, for months, I had been kind of like denying going to things like that, or saying, no, I'm good, and choosing to stay inside by myself and kind of isolating myself. Or if I was out, I put on a complete fake facade where like no one knew how I was really feeling inside. But in that moment, since it was like midnight, I wanted to say like, no, I'm not going. But I had this impression come to me that like, this could be the thing that God is trying to bless me with. And so, as weird as it is to meet up with your friends and go on a late night McDonald's run and feel like that's an answered prayer, I said yes. I linked up with them at McDonald's. They knew I could beatbox. They knew I could beatbox with a McDonald's cup. And they challenged me to do it in front of everybody and show the entire restaurant, like everyone that was there. And so I did, and people recorded it on their phones, including my friend Sean, who's the guy who invited me in the first place. And actually, after the video was made and after we were leaving the restaurant, he was like, hey, man, look, do you want, like, this is the video you made. Do you want this? And I literally, looking back, it kind of makes me emotional because I feel like in a way that was God being like, this is it, homie. Like this one's for you. Like, here you go. This is what I'm trying to do for you. He's trying to hand it to me. And I said no. I was like, no, that's a crappy video. You know, why would anyone post that? Why would anyone like that? I'm just garbage and that was stupid. What, a fat kid McDonald's beatboxing? Like, no. I said no. And my friend was like, well, can I post it? And I was like, sure, man, go ahead. So he posted it. And the next morning, 56,000 views. The next, well, by the end of that day, 1 million views. By the end of that week, 10 million views. And it went on to get over 1 billion views, beatboxing with a McDonald's cup. And from there, I'm kind of being a long-winded answer here. I'm just trying to give the complete story, but we can get into it more. But basically, after that video, I had all kinds of opportunities with McDonald's commercial, with events, with actually an internship with McDonald's. They helped, support me with helping with like school housing and stuff like that. Like there's all kinds of really cool experiences from that video, and unexpected too. Like, I thought, okay, I'm going to be a famous YouTuber now or what? But instead, what happened is I got booked to do motivational speaking at events and use beatboxing as like an X factor thing, and became more about impact and keeping people motivated to stick it out and to keep going.
I love that, man. So one of those questions I have is, are you still connected with Sean?
I am actually. We literally talk like every single day. We're still like Snapchat people. I know people have kind of, it's like old people now on Snapchat. I don't know, but my Snapchat is basically like my inner circle of friends who I've known for years. And Sean and I still talk every single day on Snapchat, just back and forth stuff.
Let's go. A shout out to Sean then, right?
Yeah, shout out to.
Does he know the impact that he made for you that day? Like, is he aware of that?
Yeah, and I don't think he remembers oftentimes like the impact he made on me as like, someone who was very depressed in that time, but he does know the impact of like that viral video and stuff. And we've talked things out, and there were all kinds of in and out things that happened where like agencies, we were doing partnerships and stuff, and like we were giving each other percentages. It wasn't like I completely ruled him out of the equation, but the impact he made on me, I think he does know, because we've talked about it before. It's been a while, but I think he does know. And then we play games together too, like Xbox and Call of Duty, all that stuff we have for years. And we're kind of just always that support system. I mean, I'm not here to share his story, but he has struggled with similar mental health issues. And I think a lot of people have. And us just kind of hanging out and being close friends is, having that boxing trainer in your corner in the ring. It's just having that someone there to help you when times get hard. That still happens today, literally, 8 years later.
I love that. Man, friends are the blessing of God. And the story that came to mind as you were saying that, I'm going to butcher this story, by the way, but there was a story of a certain city or a certain town was hit with extreme weather, tsunami, tornado, something of that nature. And in the process, there were certain people that got stuck in their houses. And so they started to send out emergency vehicles, emergency individuals to save these people. And there was this specific individual that was sitting there. And let's just say a boat came, and the boat's like, hey, come on, get on. And he's like, no, 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 God will save me. And then a helicopter comes. He's like, hey, come on, get on the rope. Come on, get on the rope. He's like, no, 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 God will save me. And it got to the point where he died. And when he died, he went to God and he said, hey, what's up with that? I thought you were going to save me. And God said, I gave you the X amount of things to save you.
I sent the boat. I sent the helicopter.
Yeah. And that's really the story that came to mind, because it almost was like, again, you said, Sean, can I post this? And even though you said no, Sean said yes to your dreams for you. And that's amazing, to say the least. Now, my follow-up question to that is, There's obviously a lot of emotions that you were experiencing. Are you willing to go deep in that moment of the emotions that you were experiencing at that time?
Sure. Yeah. I'm pretty open about it.
So, what were those emotions? What were the thoughts? What were the emotions that you were going through that night?
I think it was mainly a sense of feeling, not good enough, and like somehow that was like a reason why I didn't have the clarity that I needed to move forward with beatboxing. Because when you think about it, who do I talk to? Do I just go talk to another fellow beatboxer who's in my exact same situation and ask them like, "Hey, how are you going? Like, what are your plans?" I mean, that was well before I was super active on social media or anything. There's not very many beatboxers, and I'm just like, no, I felt like no one understood what it is I wanted to do. And I oftentimes didn't even feel like I had a complete understanding of what I wanted to do. And then just outside of beatboxing, sucking at everything is what I felt like. Like I couldn't get dates. I also around the time I had no I had a girl that I was interested in, but like I'd never had a girlfriend before, and I felt like I didn't have money. I was around a lot of kids. No disrespect to anyone who's like LDS and like going to these schools and stuff, but I felt like I was the only poor kid. Like every single person had a ton of money. Everything was taken care of. I was working at one point. I was working like three jobs and taking 15 credits in college and just trying to keep my freaking head above water, And so those were kind of the main things. I think I had all these things I wanted and I just wished I had and beat myself up over it.
Absolutely. So, along that process, after the video went viral, did everything change for you, or what was that journey of getting out of that pit in your life?
Yeah, I feel like something happened. And it's interesting to think about because I don't know if I have a 100% answer. It's just something happened. Like, for example, the video went a billion views is a lot to kind of comprehend, like to even wrap your mind around. But I knew that it went viral for two reasons. One, people thought it was cool. Two, people thought it was a joke. And like some people were in the comments saying, "Oh, this is so awesome that he can do this," right? And then there were other comments who were like, "Look, that fat kid in McDonald's." And so I was seeing both sides of it. And normally, I think if I were like before the video went viral, if I were to see a bunch of people saying, "Look at that fat kid at McDonald's," I would have been like distraught, gone home and cried and not known how to receive that. But for some reason, something changed internally in me where people could say whatever the hell they want to say, and I didn't give a shit. I didn't care. I was just like, you know, thanks for the engagement on my video, bro. You're super helpful. I just like I literally had this like mind switch where I did not care what people thought anymore. And I think that came as a blessing from God. Honestly, I don't know how that switch happened. It just did. And then I'm trying to think I think the other way kind of that saw things change when that video went viral was I had like a newfound confidence in myself of like, okay, I am supposed to pursue this. I don't have a clear vision of where it's going, but I know I'm meant to do it. And I know that my passion, like I'm passionate about the things I'm passionate about for a reason. It's by design. And the more I stay close to the things I'm passionate about, the more I uncover other things I wouldn't have never known that I was passionate about. And the more I constantly am like realigning myself with who I'm naturally supposed to be or who I naturally am. And I'm just like kind of, removing what I need to and adding what I need to align myself perfectly with what I was supposed to do. It's kind of like a calling, I guess, or purpose. But yeah, that was kind of the video going viral was like the answer I needed to show me that I should do that still.
Absolutely. You mentioned something that I coach to all the time, almost in every single one of my coaching sessions. And it simply comes down to the fact that transformation happens in a moment. It doesn't happen over time. Sure, we can get the reps in, and then all of a sudden we have that moment of like, oh, I'm strong. Or maybe you read, and then all of a sudden you have the moment that you feel strong. or you feel smart. But it always comes down to that moment. And so what I'm hearing from you is maybe that wasn't your only prayer of anger. Maybe, and I would love for you to speak on this. Maybe it wasn't your only prayer of anger and frustration and why me. Maybe it wasn't your only night considering life. I'm sure you had many of those. What I'm hearing as well is that your repetitions of prayer to God, your repetitions of prayer to God to help you, to guide you, that you wanted beatboxing to work. It was that moment, that day that changed everything for you.
Yeah, it's true. I could totally see that. And to be honest, even since then, I still feel I don't necessarily pray this way, but I still often feel like, I don't have the clarity or like I want so much more than what I currently am working with. And I have kind of this why me mentality. But I think one, if I were to compliment myself in any way, I would just say it's that I haven't given up and that I do continuously show up to put in the reps and like try to figure out what I need to do and where I need to go. But I think one thing also that's changed, and this maybe didn't change right when the video went viral, but just over time, is now I don't do that with the mindset of solely helping me, but I do that with the mindset of like, that's how I'm going to get the bigger picture. That's how I'm going to impact more people. Like, that's going to be how I get on bigger stages in front of 1,000 people instead of 200 people, which whatever stage, it's an awesome opportunity. It's just, I want to have the most impact possible to help the most people who have felt like how I've felt.
Absolutely. And that comes to mind of the same. Another thought is the concept of what if, but transforming that to even if. It sounds like to me in the past, when you were going through more negative emotions, that it was what if it doesn't work out? What if this wasn't for me? What if I'm not talented enough? What if I'm just, that fat white kid that can't accomplish anything? And that night you switch to even if I don't succeed right away, I'm going to continue. Even if I fumble on a podcast or a beatboxing engagement, I'm going to keep pushing forward. Even if I don't succeed in 5, 10 years, I'm going to push forward because at some point I will succeed. And even though you don't fully know what that looks like, at some point in the future, you'll look back and be like, man, I'm living this dream. I know what I'm supposed to be doing now.
I appreciate that, man. Thank you. And yeah, I think there's a lot of really good messages in that for anyone listening, to apply to them, to themselves. It's about showing up, but also it's understanding that even if shit happens, it's part of the bigger story that will be even more impactful when you share it, like say I go on a weight loss journey, right? And I look freaking amazing in like 5 years or something on a stage, then, you know, right now, like I would look back to right now and be like, oh, remember when I was chubby on all these freaking, podcast interviews or whatever? But it was the continuously showing up, and when you're sharing the story to other people, it's like more impactful when you can say, hey, I was in the shit. Like I was that fat kid. Here's pictures to prove it, or I did flop on that podcast interview. Here's the episode. I think just people misunderstand adversities. They take it as such a bad thing, but it actually could be such an amazing thing to build your story of resilience and make you and your message even more powerful.
Absolutely. Every story that's powerful has that moment of the people that can connect with. For example, take that night out of your story. It's like the viral video has a lot less meaning, and it's just the truth.
Yeah.
And so I'll in this, I'm gonna have Megan drop a link into that podcast, and y'all gotta go. I'm gonna say this. In the bottom section of the description, there's a link to that YouTube video, of that viral video. Go take a look. It's freaking amazing. So
Thank you.
so let's pivot here. You had a moment of transformation. And obviously at this point, you listened to God. You started a podcast, you're speaking, nationally. You're going to Florida here upcoming, which is exciting to speak, and you're beatboxing. You're literally following that journey. And you've built your own stage. You know, every podcast you launch, you're probably getting 100 to 1,000 people to listen to it, plus the reels, which is a couple other thousand people. You literally are getting stages of 1,000 people to listen to your content every single podcast, which means you are living out this dream right now, which is freaking amazing.
Yeah, it's true. It's crazy to think how, because the viral video was in 2015. Like I still remember the night, and I've got the whole thing on my website in the about section, but it was October 4th, 2015. The video was uploaded like 12:14 a.m. It was like a midnight post or something like that. But that was a very significant moment. But it's crazy to think 2015 was a while back. And I mean, people listening to this podcast right now, you know, it's 2024, but people who listen to this episode next year and the year after, it's going to be even longer ago that was. But I'm still out here grinding. I'm still doing it, man. Like a lot of people stop after it gets hard. And I just don't ever want to be that person. I want to keep going, even though I'm not like the Tony Robbins of that scene yet. It's like I'm still going to keep grinding.
Amen to that, man.
And
So
you're doing
you
that too. I can see you're doing that too, man.
Hey, that's why we got connected, right? We saw a lot of likes in one another, and now we're good friends. Now your dog wants to come say what's up too.
You know, I've been doing live streaming on TikTok, and she'll come up here and get in front of the camera. I think she likes it now. She likes being on camera.
That's amazing. I'm sure she has a lot of right?
Yeah, Libby. She gets a lot of attention from that.
I'm sure she has a lot of wisdom inside of her head. So listening to you and all these podcasts.
Right. By default.
Exactly. So let's talk about winning. So you had this night. Talk to us about your process of now winning in life today. How do you put your best foot forward?
So winning, the way I think about winning is, this is going to sound so Gary V-esque, but I feel like we've already won in the sense that we're blessed to be here. We're blessed to be alive. We're blessed to be able to do all the things we want to do, you know? And so I think first it starts with gratitude, but then I would say winning it comes in little doses here and there, but it's not an always thing. Like, and the message I would share of just continuing to show up, 90% of the battle is just showing up, is because you never know what's right around the corner. And it could be a win that you're missing out on if you give up. Right. So like with this viral video, say that night I was really ready and I just was like not even here anymore, then I would have, just before a very pivotal moment in my life, I would have called it quits. But because I hung on literally a few more hours, everything in my life changed in a way that is completely unpredictable. Nobody on planet Earth, not me, not anyone else, could have said, you're going to beatbox with a McDonald's cup on this day and it's going to change your life. And I'm like, what the heck? You don't know that. So anyway, my point is if you hang on one more day, and every time you feel hurt or discouraged or like you can't do it anymore, just freaking hang on, because you could be so close to another win that you never would have seen coming. But that's my thoughts on winning is, it's not a permanent state. It's little doses here and there to keep you on the right path and to keep you going.
Absolutely. And with that, honestly, anybody listening right now, and from your story and even from my story, just promise yourself one more day. Like if you're in the midst of having depression, anxiety, questioning life, just promise yourself one more day. Today, I'm going to show up fully, and I'm going to stay here today. And come tomorrow morning, promise yourself the same thing, and do that every day. And naturally, at some point, you're going to look back and have a story like Parker's, where he's now living out his dream. Is he at the perfect result in life? No, he's still along his journey, just like you and I. But someday you're going to look back on your life and you're going to think, look how far I've come. and you'll be extremely proud of yourself as well.
I love that. And just to kind of speak to the gratitude thing I said too, I just feel like if you put on the lens of gratitude, and I know that's like a fluffy word. I'm trying not to be all like fluffy, say the stuff that everyone hears all the time, but if you do like approach the day like that, when you do promise yourself that one more day, just go and do something as simple as it is and try to pick out like the sweet and tender mercies, try to pick out the random things, the blessings from that day, as little as they are. And I think you'll be surprised how that boosts you. You know, like you could literally just, if you're having a shit day and you're hanging on one more day, take a walk, take a freaking walk around the block, or walk maybe a different route that you've never gone before, and see the people you run into, see the thoughts that you have, see, you know, the little plant coming up from the crack in the sidewalk, see the dogs walking. Like just try to take in everything around you and notice the sweet and beautiful things about it and be grateful. And it's going to change your mindset about everything. And you know, that something I did a long time ago that I want to get back into doing is journaling. And one thing that I did that I need to start again was a his hand in my life journal.
Ooh, I love that.
And it was, instead of writing about my crappy day, I would get on there and write about one thing or a couple things each day that was about what I interpreted may have been God's hand in my life. And then you start to pick up on it every day. It just becomes a habit. You know, the conversation with the person that really meant a lot to you, or where you helped someone else. There's just so many things all around us that we take for granted.
Absolutely. I think picking up journaling would be powerful. I'll share a little snippet of my journal today because the truth is, I woke up today, I wanted to go back to bed, and I wanted to do nothing today. So I wrote, this is a small portion of it. There's people out here that believe in you. Either you will prove them right or you will prove the ones who don't believe in you right. It's your choice.
Powerful, man.
It's just the truth. And when I wrote that, I re-engaged myself. It's like, all right, this is a choice, baby. Let's go make this work.
Yeah.
So bringing it back to making choices and putting your best foot forward. Obviously, you're a beatboxer, very talented at it.
Thank
You're a
you.
podcaster. And through both of your talents, you're a podcast producer helping other people accomplish the same, taking what they love, putting it on their own stage and making it become a reality. So help fill us in on somebody that's in entrepreneurship looking to take their talents forward. How can they best put their best foot forward in that regard?
Yeah. With like podcasting and stuff, you mean?
Podcasting, niching down, whatever you feel my audience could benefit from in putting their foot forward in that regard.
Awesome. Yeah. I think something that's really been top of mind for me lately is this interesting concept of like the truth behind niching down. And what I mean by that is, I think we all consume so much content that's like, oh, you got to have a niche. You got to have your little, you know, category, your lane that you stay in and never branch out of it. And I think to some extent that's actually like soul sucking, you know, that makes us feel like crap. It makes us feel like we're I mean, some people might be totally fine with it, but other creatives like me, it's like you don't want to be in just one lane, you know, like you want to experiment with all kinds of things and be creative. And so the thing I was thinking about was combining niches for like an ultimate niche. And the example that comes to mind is the Hot Ones podcast, right? That podcast is a super big thing. It ended up becoming like its own show on Hulu and stuff. And it's just a podcast. It's an interview podcast like what we're doing right now. But he added his passion for like creating hot sauces and eating hot wings. And he started interviewing celebrities as they eat progressively worse hot wings. And it became this funny thing where it was a really niche podcast and nobody else is doing that. And something I'm working on transitioning into right now with my podcast, Upbeat, is I love motivational content like what we're doing right now, but I also love music. How can I implement more music into Upbeat? And I'm like, well, what if I interview these top level entrepreneurs about their favorite songs and like their go-to songs that carried them through the hardest times of their lives. And now it's a super niche podcast. There's no other podcast out there doing that. And so it's kind of finding what you're pursuing and then combining that with the things that you are passionate about that are unique to you, your talents, your characteristics, your personality traits, whatever it is, combining them is how you like create your own personal powerful niche. And then the only thing I would add on top of that is sharing stories. And that's where podcasting comes into play. You know, we live in a world where there's a wave of AI coming. It's already here. It's going to get 10 times worse. And authenticity, which is you're brilliant at speaking to, authenticity and sharing your story is going to be the best thing you could possibly do to stand out and not be like everyone else doing the templated, scripted AI fake stuff. Like sharing your story is super important. And this is, I'm sure you've heard of Future, just kind of a shout out to a guy I follow on YouTube. His name's Future, Futur. He said something in one of his videos about how people are not attracted to brands and companies. They're attracted to people and personalities. And so you want to make sure you're putting the you and putting the human into what you're building. And that's the easiest way to do that is by sharing your story or sharing client stories, any personal story you could possibly share. And one of the best ways to do that is through podcasting. So I love helping people share their story on podcasts, find their niche with podcasts, and then take care of all the editing and hard stuff that they don't want to worry about. So it's kind of my thing.
Absolutely. So you mentioned music. So question for you, what is the music that you go to get you through the hard times?
Yeah. So I will say my favorite band of all time is One Republic,
Okay.
Ryan Tedder. And so I will always go to that's just a go-to for me. But I also like The Fray. I like the song You Found Me by The Fray. I like the song Fix You by Coldplay. Fix You actually has a really deep meaning. I love that song. Very actually similar to what we've talked about today. You know, in a time in his life, he was getting up and choosing to follow the light, and now he's freaking Coldplay, you know? And so he went from like the song Fix You is really, really deep, actually. So, and it's very similar to what we've talked about today.
Dude, we could go on like a 10-hour road trip because your music is my jam as well.
Right.
But
Well, and what surprises people though is I'm very cross genre. Like I really love pop punk and alternative and rock and rap and country. I was a country radio DJ for 2 years. Like I'm very diverse in my music, in my love for music. But something that's always been in my corner is like that One Republic stuff, The Fray, Coldplay, Fall Out Boys, like that or Fall Out Boy. I don't think there's an S at the end of that. But yeah, those songs, I mean, I've been listening to them since middle school and they've helped me through really hard times in my life.
absolutely. A little dirty secret about me is my favorite musician is Machine Gun Kelly.
Oh, nice.
So that's a little fun fact about me.
What'd you think of his rap battle thing with Eminem or the diss tracks?
Here's what I'll say. I think Eminem is king on rap, but personal opinion, very opinionated. I think Machine Gun Kelly is a better artist holistically because there's nobody else in the industry that can go from rock to rap to pop. He has a very diverse plethora of his talents. So I personally think he's a top artist over him.
Yeah, I think that's cool. There's a really fun video of him and I think BB Rexa where they perform a song for the troops overseas, and it's actually really cool. That was my first time seeing Machine Gun Kelly not just as a rapper, you know, but doing other
Yeah.
stuff that he can do, playing really good guitar and stuff too.
Yeah. So Eminem killed him on that. Let's be real. But I think holistically, I think he's a better artist.
Yeah. You know who you should check out, and to anyone listening, is NF.
Yes,
I love
please do.
NF. He needs to.
This was supposed to be a happy podcast, Parker. We're going down Machine Gun Kelly and just kidding. They have some really uplifting music too, but their old
Yeah.
stuff is definitely depressing.
Right. Yeah. NF's new stuff is really hopeful. In fact, his whole album is called Hope, I think. And then he's, talks a lot about what we would talk about on podcasts like these, about just facing your inner demons and coming out way better than you even knew.
I agree. I love it. So NF Machine Gun Kelly, go check him out, and of course the Coldplay and Fall Out Boy in the fray.
Here we are plugging all these. It's
Dude,
freaking
I
funny.
love this. So my last question in reference to that is because I feel like that you just dropped a bomb right there is niching down. And it's like, what the hell is that? How the hell do I niche down? I want to be a coach. I want to be a motivational speaker. It's like, how do I niche down? I want to do everything, like you said. And you mentioned finding out what you absolutely love and putting your own twist on it. And you're incorporating music into your podcast and your beatboxing. How does somebody like, what's that thought process? How does somebody figure out, okay, I want to be a podcast and then I'll add this spice to it? How does somebody figure out what to add?
Yeah, I think it's just being aware, like working on higher self-awareness, and being able to spot the things that you're naturally drawn to. Like, and there's a lot of things out there on the internet. I'm sure people listening to you and your podcast, they'll be able to find all kinds of tips. And if they go through your coaching on how to spot those things. But one of the go-to questions is always like, well, think to when you have been happiest in your life. Like, what is it that you were doing? Why do you think it made you happy? And just try to find those things that you're naturally drawn to. And those, I feel like, are little breadcrumbs from God to find what we are destined to do. And there's just a kind of a deep thing because you can go kind of as surface level as you want or as deep as you want. Like I'm sure you live in an area where I think the guy's name is Red Suit Realtor. Have you heard of him?
Yeah, I
So,
certainly am.
so like with him, right? Like he's a realtor, but he's known as the Red Suit Realtor. He found something completely unique to him that just stands out, is all I'm trying to say. And so like you could do something as like your favorite color that you like wearing, something as simple as that, all the way to like what I would do being a beatboxer. Like I'm a beatboxer, so I'm not just a motivational speaker. I'm a motivational beatboxer. You combine the two to just make your niche. The event I'm going to speak at in Florida that you were talking about earlier, that is going to be for all dentists. And I'm going to talk to them about not just being a dentist, but being a dentist and whatever else it is that they are. And that's going to be the perfect niche for them. Maybe it's the red scrubs dentist. Maybe it's the beatboxing dentist. Maybe it's the magic dentist. Whatever it is, there's all kinds of different ways you could open it up, and it could be as surface level or as deep as you want. But I guess the hack would be to try to just be aware and observant of what you naturally are drawn to. And I think you've asked me this question before, if there's, if money's not a thing, like, and you are never going to die, what would you do with your time? What would you want to go do? And there lies all kinds of the things that you're passionate about.
Yeah, the concept of living forever. Would you accept yourself for where you are today?
Yeah.
It's a big lesson. Yeah, find what you actually want and go chase it because it brings in that thought process of what we talked about earlier is even if you were going to live forever, even if you had a hardship, even though you had that hardship, you'd keep pushing on to accomplish that. So I love that concept. And as we're wrapping up here, I have a couple more questions to shoot off to you. One, what is your definition of an authentic life for you?
I would say we've covered it today with just the passion thing, like those breadcrumbs that I mentioned from God. It's when you're picking those up and when you're following what you feel called to do. That's the most authentic. Wherever you are on the journey, whether you're in the trenches just starting or whether you're on stages around the world or a huge success and still looking for ways to grow or other things about life to appreciate, just being true to those things that make you, regardless of where you are on the journey.
I love that. Now, second question. If you could give any last piece of advice to the audience today, what would that be?
I would say that it's not about you, it's about the impact that you can have. Whatever it is you're doing, you can do it for you, but also do it for other people and with good intentions. And as far as impact goes, I think I may have mentioned this on your podcast last time that I was on, but there's no impact metric or analytic, right? Like you can check your analytics dashboards and see likes and views and impressions and comments and, demographics, what kind of person you're hitting, whatever. But there's not like you saved this many lives metric. There's not a you motivated this person to go to the gym that week metric. You don't know sometimes the amount of impact that you're having, but you're having it. And every once in a while, you might be blessed with that full circle moment of getting to hear back about how you saved someone or helped someone. But just because you don't see the metric doesn't mean it's not there.
Powerful. And in the last podcast, Parker shares a story of how he impacted somebody in the hospital that watched his videos. And I don't remember the exact details, but all I'll say is if you want to hear a story that will move you practically to tears, if not to tears, go check out that podcast to get a full insight on his impact story of one of the most inspirational stories, to say the least.
I appreciate that, man.
Absolutely. And man, I could talk to you for hours. When we get on calls, we talk for hours when we're trying to only talk for 15 minutes.
Right.
I'm so grateful you're still here, man. Truly. You've been a big blessing in my life, and talking about the impact that is unseen. You've made a huge impact in my life. And I know without a shadow of the doubt, even my family has listened to that podcast, or my audience or my friends. And I've gotten messages from people about that podcast. So you certainly are making a massive impact, and I'm proud of you, man.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I would say you too, man. You've created the platform and the stage. So I value you as a friend, but also for giving me the opportunity. And, time is a really valuable thing, not to quote Linkin Park here, but time's a valuable thing. And I don't take it for granted, that you could be doing anything, interviewing anyone, but you're spending time with me. And then people listening to this podcast could be listening to any podcast and they're here with us and they made it this far. So I just want to say, I appreciate you and your audience.
Absolutely. With that in mind, you guys have a wonderful rest of your day. And down below will be all of Parker's social medias and websites so that you can go follow along this journey. I would encourage you to go to his website, read his about section. That way you too can recognize that you can live an empowering life.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you again for listening into the Journey to Authenticity podcast, a podcast helping you to become fully authentic on your journey to success. If you liked what you heard, go ahead and subscribe and leave a review so that I can get more guests like Parker Kane coming in, the best guests possible, to make a bigger impact and more valuable content. That in mind, why I have you. If you're interested in one-on-one coaching and you're ready to take your life to the next level where you're truly living an authentic life, go to bradenbelknap.com to the link below and fill out a form so you can start your journey to coaching.